This is Psychonauts 2. We're here on Xbox Series X taking a look at this absolutely delightful, wonderful, and basically perfect experience. This is the long-awaited sequel to the original Psychonauts. It's been a long time coming, but we're finally here, and I'm pleased to say that the results are absolutely excellent. This game is fantastic. It is a blast to play. It provides hours of gameplay, and then tons of extra side content that you can do afterwards if you want to go do side missions, replay missions for collectibles, or go out and adventure in what's basically a series of open world little hub areas that you can go and visit to explore and do different things in. On Xbox Series X, we're getting two options. The first is a native 4K resolution at 60 FPS. The second is a 1440p at 120 FPS, both of which are fantastic, and you'll see a little bit of the 120 FPS gameplay further on in the video to the best of my showcase. We'll talk about that a bit more when we get to that point. Both have HDR support, and both have VRR support, which is variable refresh rate, which is again fantastic. This is a Xbox Play Anywhere title. Buy it once digitally on Xbox or the Microsoft Store, own it on both spots. That means PC and mouse keyboard support for that version of the game. And yeah, this is a really fantastic offering that looks absolutely fantastic and plays incredibly well. This is a single player experience, and it is a 3D platformer that does some amazing things with the modern technology that's available. Some truly stunning environments, fantastical worlds, and it's just really quite great to dive into. I love this, and I cannot wait for a Psychonauts 3. I hope the wait is a little bit less than those that had to wait for between Psychonauts 1 and 2, but yeah, I absolutely cannot wait for a follow-up. I thought this was a fantastic time. This is definitely one of the highlight games of the year. You're constantly going through such a variety of unique scenarios, and it's just absolutely fantastic. So this game takes place basically right after the events of the original Psychonauts. You're jumping into the role of Razputin as he tries to make his way into the organization of the Psychonauts, and this time you're actually at the big nerve center. You're at the base of operations, and you're kind of thrown down a notch or two. You're basically an intern that's trying to make their way up in the organization. We'll talk about that a bit more in a sec, because this is the 120 FPS option. So here it's just kind of showing a little bit of the visuals. I can't record at 120, YouTube can't present 120. I just wanted to kind of quickly showcase what 120 FPS looks like on, you know, kind of the game, just resolution-wise. It is a bit of a notch down quality-wise, but at the same time, having the 120 FPS in a platformer feels absolutely fantastic, and it is something I suggest checking out if your TV does support it, because I think it's a really cool feature to have, and something very distinct. This is also a good point to mention that there are basically no load screens in the game, maybe like half a second. You get like a brief little showcase video that I'm assuming is something that takes longer on other last-gen platforms. Basically shows Raz following for like literally half a second, and then you're right into the action. So when the next clip plays, we're going back to the regular 4K 60 mode, because that's what most of the footage was filmed at, because I was putting together a walkthrough as well for this game, so hopefully you can see that in the near future, or it's already live. And again, this is like a ton of work putting this review together. Yeah, seriously, it was very, very crunch time. So liking the video is great, subscribing is great as well. But let's continue on. So we talked about Raz. He's here, you know, he finished the camp, he finished the big mission, and now you're kind of trying to make your way in this big world that you feel definitely like a kid in. You don't know what's going on. You're kind of taking some classes. Your classmates are not very nice to you. And this is a very large cast of characters. There are a ton of individuals that make up Psychonauts 2. It is a very intense ensemble of individuals, and it's very cool to see them all sort of connect and kind of interact with one another. There are side missions that kind of build out, again, the wealth of the characters a bit more, and at times in the story I was like, oh yeah, like, I can't believe we have so many characters we're dealing with, and they all come in, they have their different parts, and if there's any favorites you had from the original Psychonauts, I'm pretty sure you're going to get them all kind of popping out for, you know, a mission or two, depending on the scenario. It's just really neat to once again have like this array of characters here, and I'm just obviously struggling with the wall jumping, which is kind of funny off the bat. This is like an opening segment, and I don't think there's any spoilers throughout this video either, just little segments and different parts of the story thrown together randomly, almost in order to showcase the different visuals and places that you go, because again, there are a wealth of different spots that you head into, and we're getting into the environment and everything like that in a little bit, still trying to build up the character. But like I said, there's a very large cast, and they balance them quite well. At the same time, I still wanted more for some of the castmates, but I understand when you've got so many characters, I think they did a perfect job of being like presenting who these people are, giving you a quick look at them, sometimes having full missions with the individuals, you understand their abilities and what they add to the team. And I think that's really cool because again, this is very much a story centered around Raz, his family, and basically the Psychonauts Corporation, the legacy of the Psychonauts, and a bit of a getting the band back together moment. I seem to be saying that a lot in games these days and some movie reviews as well, but this very much is about kind of building on the legacy of the Psychonauts. So if you've heard the tales from the first game, you know, he's always talking about the comics and whatnot, or the fiction graphic novels or whatever, or historical fiction graphic novels. Anyways, you'll kind of be very pleased. And I think a lot of the trademarks from the previous game are also present here, just in terms of like abilities and some of the things you grab. Each level is like littered with collectibles and fragments, or well, figments of imagination, or well, your mind kind of sitting there for you to gather. A lot of baggage to pick up. There's a lot of little extra things that you can find as you're exploring each of the different areas. And every place really does feel, you know, basically filled to the brim with detail and design. And it's these wild worlds. Because if you're not familiar with Psychonauts, the idea is, you know, they have these special abilities, and they can peer into the mind of other individuals. And it's this whole world where there's like these special agent ops, and they definitely play into that. Like some of the story beats and everything like this are really fun, quirky, filled with love, filled with humor, filled with joy. They're very beautifully well presented, and I absolutely love that aspect of it. But you're digging into these minds, these different, you know, experiences, and you're trying to help people. That's the biggest thing. And that's why every world looks so different, because you're stepping into the mind of different individuals that have different traumas and different problems. It's not necessarily heavy, but there's definitely some deeper emotional tones in the backdrop here, that if you piece them together while you're playing, you're going to be like, wow, that's actually kind of maybe grim at times, kind of a little bit maybe dark. And I think that's quite wonderful for just painting a picture of different issues, and that even if someone maybe comes across as a perfect person, there could be something under the hood that, you know, kind of traumatizes them or causes issues for them in the long term. And I think that's all beautifully well done and presented here. They did a master job of putting together what was a really exciting and unique experience. You know, we get a lot of platformers out there, and the 3D platformers, you know, there's a fair amount of competition in them. And I don't think we've really had one of this scale and length in quite a while. The campaign is very chunky, there's a lot to do here, and there's different options for accessibility too. I was just playing the normal the whole way through. I felt there was a fair amount of challenge, a fair amount of easygoing moments, because there is a very much a cinematic focus in this game. It may not seem like it, but the game definitely has a lot of moments which are more story-driven, and at the same time, so many different platforming perspectives. Sometimes you're jumping in the air, sometimes through floating platforms, sometimes you're in 2D, most of the time you're in 3D, there's combative sequences, there's like flying sequences, they're throwing new things at you every step of the way. There's constantly surprises, twists, and turns, and the story really wasn't even something I predicted. I don't think while I was playing through it all the way through, I was like, oh wow, you know, they keep hitting you with twists and turns, and I absolutely love that aspect of it. There was always something surprising, always something unique, and I just had a lot of fun playing through this game and seeing what it had to offer. I think there's really unlimited potential to grow this further out. And I also kept thinking, I know this is totally a side thing, but this would actually work really neat as like a movie in concept. I know the transfer between them is never usually perfect, but it just seems like something that would really lean itself into a really wild looking film going through these different brains. But the game itself gives you that freedom to explore these different places and do what you want in them. The levels themselves are very much linear in focus. They're not open world areas, and I know I mentioned open world hubs in the past, earlier in the video, and that's because there are these segments where you kind of get out into the basically the Psychonauts like atrium and then the greater area around the Psychonauts location. And you'll see more of that as you progress in the story and you see different places or get sent out to different locations. You'll see there is a sense of like freedom. It's not like a vast open world, but there's a lot of like things you can go and do within it, and different collectibles again to find, different things to, you know, kind of engage with and enjoy, and different characters to talk to. You can talk to a lot of different characters even while you're not necessarily doing something, you know, important to the mission. Like I said, there's side missions and side objectives, and it just adds a lot. And I wanted to go back to the part where I talked where there's a lot of heart. There is a lot of joy behind Raz, and seeing him deal with these people and seeing him make issues and, you know, cause issues and problems and deal with those in a interesting, mature way. Because you got to remember, it's just basically a kid, right? Out here trying to make their way in the Psychonauts organization, and they mess up. You know, Raz messes up. That's just what it is. And I think that's kind of neat how they deal with that element of, hey, you know, it is a kid, but they're very much a smart and gifted individual as well when it comes to powers. But there is a lot of responsibility when you are playing within the minds of others. And that's why I'm saying the story itself has a lot of heart to it. It makes you care about the different individuals and the characters you come across while you're playing in this game. It offers a lot of content and a lot of unique ways to interact with the individuals of this cast. And this, like a little bit of a death segment, we'll talk about difficulty a little bit further, or a little bit more further on, but yeah, it's just got a lot of neat details in that story that really make it feel heartfelt. You understand the pains and the issues of the characters, and while there might be some big spooky darkness in the backdrop, I think it does a really good job of, you know, humanizing and basically giving you a certain level of feel for the different characters, and you understand their troubles and the issues and what's caused them. And it paints a really neat picture too. Again, by the end, I was very, very surprised by where things went. I was kind of trying to piece together certain things, and you can kind of put it together, but even then, it still comes up with some fun surprises for you along the way. Neat twists, neat turns, as you really enjoy and work with this group of individuals that have had, you know, better days, easier times, and you're trying to reconnect these individuals and these minds in order to solve problems that have been sitting there, you know, for decades. And it's really up to just Raz to kind of piece everything together, meet the heroes, bring the band together, and just have a wild time while doing so. It really is just such a treat, this game. It is delightful, it is charming, it's funny. There's so many little laugh out moments and moments where you go, aw, and it's so nice to have so much emotion in a type of game. Like, it really has the time to present all of these, to make you care about the characters. And even if you're coming at this, you know, as a brand new player, I think this game itself, as a standalone, offers a lot for you to enjoy. There's a quick opening thing that kind of tells you previously in Psychonauts, and then it kicks right into the action, but it also tells you, you know, what came before. And it's its own standalone story, but at the same time, it definitely continues the adventures of Raz. And that's where I was saying I would love a third one. I think there is so much potential for them to do new things with this franchise and to really build it out. And I'm excited about it. I hope it doesn't take so long, because I want to play more of this as soon as possible. I think this is really one of the best games of this year, if not the best one I've played. It offers so many unique moments, so many challenges, so many distinct selections of places you can go and visit, and then revisit if you want to grab some more stuff. So I talked about the difficulty, you know, prior, and I was saying, you know, it's not too bad, but it can be a challenge. If you die, for the most part, it's quite fair. If you do die during like a boss sequence all the way down, I mean, they give you numerous hits and whatnot, and you can have extra tokens and things, and we'll talk about that briefly. But yeah, if you die, you do have to restart things. So you might have to restart like a boss battle, but it's always very fair. You know, you fall down, it gives you multiple challenges and choices, and if you need to adjust difficulty, there are many accessibility options present in this one, like I did mention. So this is something that I literally think this is the type of game that anyone can play. There's no reason that you shouldn't be able to engage with this one and enjoy what it has to offer, any type of gamer. And I think that's quite nice. And the accessibility, like I mentioned, is just very well done. There are so many surprising moments in this one as well. And like I mentioned, you know, this is something where you can do extra upgrades. You can play more of this. You don't have to basically just be like locked into the main story, finish the story, and be done. you can keep going. There's this whole extra element of collecting all of these, the special material, so that you can basically improve some of your skills by these special pins, and these pins will give you different abilities in that can assist you while you are battling within the game. And I think that's kind of cool as well, just in regards to kind of getting some quirky, funny things like changing the color of the ball with your levitation spell, or maybe changing some of the coloring of the world, or maybe adjusting kind of a filter. There's even like a camera you can do, or a camera mode that you can go into to take photos, like a photo mode if you like that in your game. So that's kind of nice because this is a very, stylized game. The aesthetics of this game are quite gorgeous. It's got such a great visual look that blends between, the surreal and reality, and it's just got such a gorgeous aesthetic to it. But yeah, you get these abilities, and you can buy like extra little health things that you can eat while you're fighting, improve your inventory space and whatnot for that as well. There is a lot to this game, and that's what I'm trying to say, is there's so much you can do in it, and so much fun you can have. And like I was saying, so the accessibility choices, no fall damage, invincibility, narrative combat on and off, lots of user face changes, lots of colorblind compensation options. So there's, really a breadth of different options available for that one, and I think it's kind of cool if you are, coming in at that perspective. I think it's nice that this game offers that, and I just wanted to highlight it further. But going back to the visuals, and I hope I'm not all over the place on this one, I've just got a lot of thoughts about this game, and I'm trying to decompress very quickly because, this is running close to the actual period for when I'm supposed to get everything ready. It's just a lot of pressure right now, and that's why I'm trying to say, like, this game's great. It really is. I wish I even had more time to sit here and think about the game further, and to, just kind of really take it in more. But yeah, no, this was fantastic. It was a treat. It was a delight. It looks like, I was going back to the visuals like I wanted to. Aesthetically, it is so gorgeous looking. Every scene looks fantastic and varied. Each brain has its own feeling, distinction, and style to it. The characters all come alive, and it's all very cohesive too. You would think in a game where you're going through like a psychedelic world, or maybe a bland world, or a germ world, where you might be like, oh well, it's gonna feel so different, but it's consistent. It's consistent, but yet wildly unique everywhere you go with the different battles you have to fight. And there are a range of different enemies, and they don't overdo it with the foes. There's moments where it can get a little hectic for combat, but I think for the most part, it's quite well balanced with the difficulty. How you fight them. You get just a wild selection of different psychedelic powers. I don't know if you could say psychedelic, but you get all these psychic type powers. You can like blast things, and then you can improve those powers too as you level up, and you get different abilities and different like combo things, and you can become stronger. Like on my psychic like kind of blast, kind of chains between enemies, which is fun. And there's little hints and nods and jokes about other things in this game, and some killer music as well. I don't know if you've heard some of the little background things, but there might be a familiar voice or two, depending on the type of media you like to consume. You might be a little surprised by some of the inclusions here or there, and it's nuts. I was just really such a treat to the eyes each scene, and yet so fun to play. There was times where I was like, oh, this is a bit of a challenge, and then other times I was like, no, this is just fun. And I would go back and forth, and I'd be like, no, this is just the right balance. I feel like I got a bit of challenge, and at the same time, with the franticness, I felt like I just had a lot of fun with it. Like the whole time through, I was just, enjoying things, laughing, feeling very emotive of certain scenes, feeling, all these different emotions. And I think the game tries to show that too, right? Because you're going through the brains of people, and everyone's got these different brains, and they've got different scenarios and different feelings, and it's really cool to see that all kind of come alive here and provide unique scenarios for you to constantly feel challenged and have a good time with it. At the same time, if you need to, you can also turn off those challenges as well. So Psychonauts 2 really to me is quite a perfect game. I'm sure I could sit here and I can like nitpick or something like that, but that would just be ridiculous. It really is a perfect experience. It's lengthy and it's quality. Nothing feels like padding. Everything feels like it serves a purpose. And I just had a ton of fun going through the different worlds and seeing what this had to offer. Again, kind of going to that degree, I think this is a perfect experience. I think it's definitely worth playing. And I think long term, I want a follow-up sooner than later because I need Psychonauts 3 at this point. I'd love it.